What's going on, guys? So we are back, and the second part of this video, we're actually going to be doing a bulk install. What is a bulk install? That means that using a big sheet and you're going to be laying it all there, and then once you have it all laid and squeegeed, you are going to be using a knife to cut around it. And then the reason why a lot of professionals like doing this is you do get a little bit better coverage. The reason why professionals don't do it is it takes a lot longer. So if you do a lot more bulk, typically they charge a lot more. It just depends on what shop you go to. When you do bulk, you don't want to tack in an area that you are installing on. So what I mean by that is you don't want to tack on the actual bumper, you want to tack past that. So for example, you can use a fender as a tacking point, and that will allow you to stretch it across. And then on top of that, this has a really big concave in the front, okay? So if you looked at our previous template, we had to stretch a large piece, like a rectangular piece right here, all the way through to get it really under and get rid of all that fingers. I'll say 3 to 4 inches. That's pretty significant. I think that's a large amount of stretching, and that allows the fingers or the wrinkles to go away. So this case is almost the same, except you're doing it in a 30 by a 90-inch or 100-inch roll, which makes it a little bit more difficult than just doing a small piece. So that's the concept right here. We're going to be focusing on really pulling that bottom arm when you're stretching. I'll be pulling, tacking it. Once I tack it, I get it all hydrated in the middle, and then I'll tackle the other side as well. And then we're not going to cut every single part, but I do want to show you the process. But here we go. So first step is we're going to go ahead and make sure this is hydrated. Another tip over here is typically a pro install, you want to put wheel covers when you do this, because you can, clean your wheels as much as you can, but it's still dirty. So if you put the cover, it does control all the dust. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it on this. Okay. This is not always a solo job. This will help if you have another wrap partner, okay? So we will hold it from each side, and that will make it significantly easier to lay this down. We're just gonna go ahead and just make sure that everything is hydrated. All right, I do have a helper now, but we are going to grab it. We do have a little bit of warm water that we've been putting on the top, which makes it a little bit easier to stretch. And Marley, who is actually our content producer, don't usually do this. So this is gonna be fun. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab each of these corners right here, and we're gonna pull across the bottom and make sure the bottom is actually covered. So pull, pull, pull. Okay, you see how everything is just like staying? Yeah. And what we want to do for this is we kind of hook it. You can see that it actually just stayed right there. And we're going to go to Marley's side afterwards. In bulk, you waste a lot of material because this is still a little bit too little, because you want a lot of excess on the edges. So you could tack it to the fender or different areas that instead of tacking it into the area that you're installing. So you don't actually want it on the bumper. But you can see there's so much stretch all across, it immediately wants to go into that area. So this is exactly what we're doing with bulk. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to squeegee out. And you can see right off the bat, and normally I would also take this out. Honestly, if I just forgot about it, but it's okay. I can tack that area, but you can see no tension whatsoever because the stretch was pretty aggressive when it got down to it. Okay, so before I do all of this, I actually want to get this cut. Because it has a concave, it's going to be really hard for that to escape. So let me go ahead and kind of get to this point right here. Focus on getting some of this water out right here. That's about where I want. So I'm gonna go ahead, and if you look here underneath, there's 0 fingers here because it's so stretched, and you're really using this as the body line to stretch across, so there's a lot more tension in that bottom arm. But once you get to this point, do a cut right here. You're gonna use the edge to go right to it. You can see immediately how much more work this involves, which is also why it takes a lot more money as well. So just go all the way. There you go. So once you actually cut it, it relieves that tension right there, and it just kind of goes in, like naturally. Before you do this though, because it's been a little bit of time, you want to hydrate this area, because you can see that it's sticking before you start doing that. And the other thing that I talk about is before you do this, now you have an exit point right here. So if you still need to hydrate, you can go ahead and get under. But now that you were able to release that air, you can essentially just move all that water that you had previously, actually the air, and there's an easy exit point. So just hold this up, and this just releases that, and look at that right here. And that makes it a lot easier to release the bubbles that occur right there. Spray some tack solution. I start with this edge right here. And then just hold this tension down right here. Sometimes what happens, there's slightly too much tension, so I'm gonna just go ahead and relieve that just a little bit. Look at that, now it just sits down. So it's just a matter of just relieving that tension. Full coverage, one piece, no seam right here, what it would have been. Okay, cool. So this is the part that I think most beginners and do-it-yourself aren't gonna be able to do. During the cutting process, you're never cutting through the film. You're actually just scoring it ever so slightly that you're just gonna have to pull it, and then when you pull that, it actually cuts all the way. I mean, not all the way through, but it removes that excess film. When you do this, you do wanna go a little bit inside the edge as well, so it doesn't fail. And then I'm a righty. Just gonna follow that line. Just score it. Look at that. The inner edge right here to follow this line. So you can see right here, this is the part, I think, where the work gets very, very delicate. And then you would use tack solution onto that edge, and then you can see I can go all the way. Some shops will actually remove the headlights. And the headlight's not that hard to remove, so that's something that you could remove, and you could also get underneath it. We would actually cut all the way here, dry it, and then fold it all the way over. So if I were to cut this, just do a really, really quick cut, okay? And then once we get to this point, I just want to cut some excess before I deal with the actual cutting. But once we seal this top edge, right, with tack solution, we want to give it a very small edge right here. All right, and then when you cut, you want to hold this, provide tension, let the blade do the work. You're barely actually doing the work, barely putting any force, to be honest. Now that we have all this, you want to just spray a lot of tack solution into these areas and just seal the deal. And then I am going to have a trim just right into it. And then I'm going to go ahead, go all the way. This is not really a do-yourself project, but hopefully this gives you a lot more idea about what the actual process is. You know, why would you pay a professional to do this? And this is why. It is a lot more work. I think for the do-yourself kit, a lot of times, like we do go over this edge, right? So it's already pre-templated and goes all over here. But certain edges like here, sometimes it's actually less riskier to go right to the edge, especially for something when it goes bumper to fender, right? But one thing that we could also do is use torches for corners. So you can see that I left a little bit. Typically, you want to let this dry for a few hours. That will make the process a lot easier. I'm going to just try to expedite it a little bit, kind of dry it with some microfiber. And you can see it's not sticking. We can use a little bit of torch and essentially burn that corner into it. And you look at this corner right here, and then it makes sure that it doesn't come back up. So this is a pro install. It's a lot more intensive than just getting it right to the edges. So this is the process. You do a bulk. Obviously, I had a smaller bulk than I wanted, but I kind of still showed you how I would do all of this. A little short, but you want a little bit more material so that you could tack it in different areas. And then once you tack it, you do have to make some relief cuts so you can get some of that bubble and the air out. And then once you do that, you get into the edge process, which is going to be cutting all the edges, and then you have to make some decisions about where you're gonna go right to the edge, and then where you're gonna go around the edge, right? This is already dried, so if I were to cut, you know, just for example purposes, right? Then if this is dry, you can actually fold it over or around this as well. So that's the amount of work that it takes. That's why it takes a lot longer, a lot more work, but this is the process of bulk. And this is what I don't recommend for the do-yourself, because I think it takes a lot of knowledge of film, where it is, where you're stretching, cutting techniques. I mean, you gotta have some really good hands, good pressure, a lot of practice, good squeegee techniques, and really a lot of experience to do something like this. Well, hopefully guys, that helped and gave you a better understanding of how bulk install went. If that was intimidating for you, make sure you look at our previous video where we actually did a template kit, which is our prototype, which shows you how everything is right to the edge, templated, and no blades. So that makes it a lot easier. Let us know in the comments below if you have any questions. Make sure you click on the subscribe button, and we'll see you later.